Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in. This is the second day of a well-being. Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in. This is the second day of a well-being live sessions. We're gathering here every day this week from 1 to 1:30 p.m., where we'll be talking about different aspects of the COVID-19 transition in quarantine. I am Nicole, and I'm tuning in all the way from Guatemala, Central America. I'm very happy to be here with you today. And just about myself, my background is community health. I have a master's in public health. And in more recent years, I've been exploring the aspects of health that are related to our emotional, mental, and spiritual well-being. So this week's programming, we are touching on different topics, and I'm so glad to have you tuning in. If you are with family, please have them tune in with you, because I think it will definitely provide some topics of discussion together, and I think that can definitely help us with some of the situations and experiences that we're all having to deal with. So bear with me for a moment as I share my screen with you. Okay, here we go. So this week we are looking at healthy relationships, and those are not just with our family and our business, but it's also a healthy relationship with ourselves. In that way, we can have healthy relationships with those around us. So getting started, the objectives of this programming is to be able to accompany you through this time of transition, offer some new and fresh perspective in order for you to interpret the experience that you're having with other eyes, especially having some self-reflection now that we all have a little bit more time than we usually have. It's to create a little bit more self-awareness, which will also give us an opportunity to see things about ourselves and others, and also give us an opportunity to change and to adapt. And finally, the most important is offering a well-being mindset and some practices that you can do now, that you can do at home, and also have your family participating in. So yesterday's recap, just in case you were not there, we talked about changing the fear mindset. I'm just going to go through here quickly. So fear is an emotion that is rooted in a thought, and that thought is related to the anticipation of some kind of pain or negative outcome that you are fearful of in the future. Now, in the context of COVID-19, this can be fear of falling ill, of course. Maybe we're even more afraid of our loved ones falling ill, especially if they are more vulnerable at this time. For those of us that are dealing with businesses, of course, there's a lot of fear related to financial losses, and also for many of us having to face the challenges, even transforming our business. So there are many different kinds of fears, but what I'd like to point out here is that it is just a thought, and it is originating in the mind, and it is not actually something that is here at this moment. It is something that may or may not happen in the future. However, when we think about the illness, when we think about death, when we think about the loss of financial stability, this deeply affects our health and well-being, and that's why this is so relevant. And finally, fear does not prepare us for when the time comes when we do have to deal with things. But luckily, we have well-being practices that we can engage in and that can offer us well-being today. So let's get into today's topic. This is about the family quarantine. And as we begin, I'd like for you all to take a moment and just quickly write down on a pen and paper some of the challenges, some of the difficulties that you are dealing with and confronting right now in this time of quarantine. And here are some different aspects you might consider. It's important for you to write these down anywhere. You can type them on your phone or jot them down, might be easier. So if we think about the physical space, of course, we are all of a sudden confined to a limited area. Some of us have to find an adequate space for us to be able to work in order to meet our obligations. After that, of course, all of us are looking to have a little bit of time alone. And that can be sometimes difficult when we have other people around us that we really don't get that alone time that we really appreciate and need sometimes. Other aspects can be to the physical body, that we're not getting enough movement. I live in Lisbon, and so I walk everywhere. And here in Guatemala, we move around in vehicles. And now in quarantine and with military curfew at 4 o'clock, I can't be out and about. And there are, of course, other aspects of physical challenges. On the emotional front, there are many different aspects to this, and relationships, especially, when we're talking about the family quarantine, we are with others around us and sharing a limited space. And here, you're either observing perhaps conflict between a few people, or you yourself are in conflict with somebody else. Or perhaps you are isolating completely alone, but you have, your loved ones are far away. So there are different aspects of the emotional challenges that we are going through. When we think about the mental strains, stress related to the work challenges that we're facing at the moment comes to mind. That stress and that anxiety, that uncertainty of whether we will have that stability in the future can create a lot of discomfort, and for a lot of people that can lead to burning out and not having healthy boundaries at this time. On the social aspect, of course, we're not able to socially engage in the gatherings and circles with the people that nourish us and that inspire us and that comfort us. So there are many different aspects that we may be having to cope and deal with in quarantine, and many more for that matter. Now, what I would like to direct our attention to now is, after realizing all the challenges that you're having, what do you think are the unique challenges your family members are facing? Of course, they have their own set of challenges to overcome, and these will differ depending on their age. If they are of an older, vulnerable population, they will probably have their own fears and their own difficulties in dealing with the current situation. Gender, of course, health conditions, work obligations, other financial situations, and many more, of course. And not listed here are the fears, which what we were just looking at previously. All the fears related to potential situations, the anticipation of pain and suffering. But that seems very real because we do suffer in this moment now. Okay, let's move on. So basically, just summing up from those two previous slides, we can understand that the quarantine experience is highly individual. We are all in a universal experience of COVID-19 in the sense that our lives have been turned upside down, and that there are many aspects of our life that are being impacted. But how each person interprets that impact is highly subjective. And that's the point that I want to make here, depending on your past experiences, depending on your age, depending on your gender, depending on many, many different factors. Every person in your household is having their own subjective interpretation of this experience. And that's the the point that I would like to make here. So let me come back to you on camera. And so taking that into consideration, that every person in your house is having their own subjective experience. This is something that is important to recognize and acknowledge. And what can we do about this? And how can we take that which we know and make the best of it so that we can have more harmony in the home? Because this is actually the most important thing, is that there's harmony in the home and that we can reduce as much conflict as possible. And we can do this by practicing compassion. Compassion is really it's a beautiful topic, and I love to talk about it, and I don't have enough time to talk about it. But I really love the practice of compassion as talked about by His Holiness the Dalai Lama and the Buddhist path. And that is that with compassion, we understand that we are all a product of conditions and consequences that came before us, which is our life experiences, it is the lives of our parents, it's the experiences that we ourselves have been having over our life, and also the resources that we have had available, whether those are material resources or the other aspect of resources, emotional, mental, spiritual resources. So as we're all trying to deal and cope in this moment of transition, I think we can all agree that we do the best that we can with what we have available to us. And that may not be perfect in my eyes, the way that perhaps my mother is relating to my father, but I can understand and accept that she is doing the best that she can with what she has. And so if you think about your own situations where there might be conflict, and perhaps it's you directly in conflict with somebody else, is taking that into consideration, that we can understand, we can accept that we all do the best that we can with what we have, and that may not be perfect. And we may be able to change at some point. It doesn't mean that we can't change, but in this moment now, this is the best that we can do. And that's why I think compassion is such an important topic here, because this is a way to be more open and more understanding and see people and recognize that they also have challenges, that they are also suffering, and not to be so set in our own mind, in our own subjective interpretation. We have to realize that other people are there and they are also coping with challenges. Now, one of the things that I think is extremely important is having a well-being practice. And this is a mind, body, soul practice. And some of you may have a practice already. Perhaps you practice yoga, or you practice Tai Chi, or you practice Qigong. And maybe you don't have a practice yet. But one of the Yoga Sutras, and this is the sacred text, the very first Yoga Sutra says that now is the best time to come to the practice. So if you don't have a practice already, if not now, then when, And the practice is important because it brings us back to our center, back to equilibrium. And I really recommend those practices that can get you out of the conceptual mind. All day we are analyzing, evaluating, and assessing, and putting things in boxes. And so a practice that allows you to come out of the conceptual mind space, I really recommend. And maybe, maybe it's going out and walking barefoot on the grass by your house and just connecting with the earth. Or maybe it's just coming onto your mat and laying on your back and bringing your knees into your chest and just moving your body and connecting with your breath. Anything that is soothing and that feels good, because that can be enjoyed now. That can be enjoyed today. And this will help on, facing every single day, replenishing your energy and coming from a centered place. Not only is that good for you, but it is also going to help you with your relationships and how you also respond. In this time, I also think it's extremely important to think about, because we want to keep harmony in the home, because we are all in a confined space, when you are engaging, doing something, let's think about whether that action, those words, are to support the collective good or not. This is something that I've been experimenting here at home, and it's actually been quite successful, I would say. And this is changing a little bit the mindset that we usually have, where we have a point to make and we need people to accept our point of view, even if we're stuffing it down their throat. And I think this we need to move away from. And what we need to prioritize is the collective good. And so are your actions going to support the collective good, or is it just supporting your ego or your need to be, your need to be right, your point of view to be heard? So we have to kind of remove, perhaps relinquish a little bit of the I, so that the group can actually coexist and be more harmonious. And finally, another point that I wanted to make was, this is the time for reflection. And we can all interpret this experience in our own way. We have a conscious mind, and so we can interpret anything in any way that we like. It is our conscious choice. And so while we are in quarantine, instead of thinking about all the challenges and how negative this experience is, let's turn our mindset and ask ourselves, what is the opportunity here? What is the opportunity for me? Is it to spend more time with my loved ones? Is it to have deeper and perhaps more honest conversations with them? Is this an opportunity to face some demons of my own, some false beliefs of my own? What is the opportunity? There's always an opportunity. If we ask ourselves, we will find an opportunity. So that's my challenge to you, is that you discover what the opportunity is here for you. Let me share you back my screen for a moment. Okay, so here we've just gone over all of these together. Okay, and just recapping, because this is a quick show of 30 minutes. So we've gone over the challenges, some of the challenges in quarantine as they relate to different aspects of our health and our well-being. We know that it's complicated, and we also acknowledge and recognize that as much as you are going through challenges, so are your loved ones and the people in quarantine. And so with that in mind, and knowing that we are all so diverse and different, we understand that every person is having their own subjective experience of quarantine. And so what can we do to have more harmony in the home? And practicing compassion is one very easy way to bring harmony in the home, and that is seeing and recognizing that people have their challenges, that they are suffering, they are doing the best that they can with what they have, and it's taking that into consideration. Taking up a mind, body, soul practice is always beneficial. It can never hurt. and use this time to reflect on what this experience can give you. What is the lesson here for you? So thank you so much for tuning in. Tomorrow we will look at energy, focus, and sleep and how we can enhance these aspects for resilience, which is so important. So we will look at the context, the challenges. We'll have a look at a basic inventory. And of course, I will share with you well-being mindset and practices. So that's all. I hope it was insightful. I hope you're watching this with your family, and I hope that everything that you take out of this, you can please share the abundance, share it on, have these discussions. I think it's very worthwhile that we share with others at this time, because we're all going through this universal experience, but we're all dealing with it differently, depending on who we are. Thanks so much. If you would like some personalized support, please reach out to me. You can book a session with me directly on the app. Happy to hear from you. And I'm offering a virtual retreat program. So if you are interested, please do reach out. Thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Bye.